guess what we're going to talk about today?
What do we got?
Play calling. Play calling. Have we talked about that at all?
A little bit.
It's the story that just won't end.
Mm-hmm.
Doug Pederson asked about it. Doesn't like to be asked about it.
I should have worn my T-shirt.
I did not ask.
Damn it.
They actually started. I thought I was on time, and I wasn't because, well, they started the presser a little early today. So I missed the part for the first 2 minutes, which was asked about the play calling.
Yeah.
And
it's probably for the best that you missed that part. Build some equity.
That's right. I'm in equity building mode.
Yeah, you are.
But we got to some more detail of this, and I don't know if you have it right off the rip, Nick, if you can get to it, but it's
I haven't heard this, so I can't wait to hear this.
It's very short. The bottom line asked about it, who's going to call plays, and I think to no surprise, Press Taylor is going to be that guy with a caveat, at least for the preseason. If you have it, Nick, let's play it.
For preseason, Press will do it for preseason, yeah.
And it's still up in the air as for Dolphins?
Yes.
As far as
Loves that question. He loves that question.
Is it?
So why is it still up in the air for the Dolphins?
Is it really up in the air, though?
I don't know.
Is it really? What do you mean you don't know? So you're going to have, let me get this straight. You're going to have Press Taylor call the plays in the preseason because why not? And then all of a sudden, versus Miami, you're going to flip the script on your quarterback and on your team and go, you know what? I think I'm going to call the plays instead. Press Taylor is calling the plays now. I'll be honest. I'm going to be more worried if Press Taylor doesn't call the plays. Well, for real.
Yeah.
Like, why would you go from calling the plays to not calling? Come on.
So you have turned. Now you're worried if he doesn't.
I just want consistency. I just want an established plan, and I don't want, we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we've done this every which way. That's the update, okay? I mean, that's
cool.
It was asked today. That's the update.
Cool.
Now, there's something
I didn't like it.
I didn't like it. There's something else significant about this, though, that came out. He's going to do it from the field.
Press Taylor or
Press
Doug
Taylor.
Pederson? Okay.
So he's going to come down.
Okay.
He was up top. And I don't know.
Reed does it from the field. Andy Reid, and, like even when Bieniemy was, he was on the field too.
Yeah. Oh, no, I get it. People do that. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think over the years, a lot of guys from, Greg Austen here, or I think Jed Fish. I think Jed Fish might have done it in both spots. I'm trying to think of all the different, a lot of coordinators around here. But yeah, I don't think I wonder if that's another wrinkle. And what Doug said is that he did it back when he started early. He would do it from the booth and then came down. He thought it was much better.
Yeah.
Now, I did ask him from a headset standpoint, does it change? Does it actually change the play call, the rhythm of the play call? And he was like, nah, not really. He said mostly in between, the communication between the player. And you see it. Most of your defense coordinators, I think, were down on the field.
Yep, correct.
Right?
Okay, yeah, for sure.
I mean, it's not. Some are upstairs.
Well, okay, so I'll take that back. Tuck kind of switched a little bit because Tucker was in the booth for a while, and then he would relay it to Joe Cullen, and then Joe Cullen will kind of tell us what to do. But then I feel like the last year that Tuck was the defensive coordinator, he was on the field. If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time picture that too, because then obviously he was the interim guy for a bit here, so saw him down the field that way. Yeah, I just think that's a little. And here's why it's interesting to me. That part of it. It's a new wrinkle.
Sure.
Like another new wrinkle. And I don't know if it doesn't. I don't know which one helps. Obviously, he thinks he's going to be in a good spot that way. I think Doug feels like he's going to be in a good spot that way. The communication with the players certainly will help. I don't know why he feels he needs that, but maybe you feel that out in that relationship with Trevor. I could see that part of it. I would like to be that if I was the play caller. The coach can always come over there. McCoy's going to be able to come over there. You've got that continuity, so it's not like it's a new guy or you lost a coach because of it. Mm-hmm. But I do understand it. I think you're for Press Taylor, who's under the microscope. Bottom line is he's under the microscope. I think it's interesting to now do it from a different vantage point. And I'm not telling you that he's never called a play or couldn't call a play from the sideline. I do think it's a different vantage point, a different feel. So now you got to get a little bit more comfortable with that, I guess. And maybe I'm over-dramatizing it. But the bottom line is, why would it be different if some people prefer it one way or another? He doesn't know if he prefers it this way yet.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if you sit in the booth, you have a better view. If you're on the sidelines, I think you have a better feel for the game.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
that.
like you can still get they still have, the Microsoft Windows things, I think, where you can see all the formations and stuff. So, I mean, I don't think it's really that different. And then obviously, if you want to talk to your quarterback, when they come to the sideline, instead of having to go to the phone, you can just, talk to them in person. So, honestly, I don't think it's obviously every single coordinator has their preference, but I don't think it's that different than we think it is.
Yeah, I don't know the level of that, but I bet you're right. And you're right. You have other people upstairs anyway, so they're just seeing it. But I will tell you this now. You do, from at least a more novice side, these guys know what they're looking for. They know what the plays are supposed to do. From a novice side, the one fun part about sitting up in the press box or high in a stand sometime is seeing the play develop.
Yeah.
It's totally different than watching it like this angle. If you're really low on the field, like I'll be for the preseason, that's a different look. I don't. My novice eye does not see as much develop with all those big bodies in space as you do up top. But he's well experienced, knows what he's looking for, and knows the things. And I do think the feel makes it better for that. But yeah, I don't know, Austen. I don't know if there's a big story here. I think we think that Press Taylor is calling plays this year. For some reason, Doug still doesn't want to tell us that. And he had another chance today, but he just chose not to tell us that, and just you heard it. It was very quick, but it was like, okay, we'll see about Miami. And what I did think a little bit, I think you could take this, or you tell me if you can take it this way. Are you basically putting him on watch? Are you saying hey, we're going to see how you do in the preseason in this vantage point with the first teamers?
No. We're in the preseason thinking about who's calling. This has to be established now. You can't.
I'm just raising the question. I don't necessarily believe it, but
I know.
But it could be interpreted
so.
that way.
I mean, sure. This is why I was a fan of the 3-step process that was going to get you to the promised land. And once again, for those who are just joining the show now, who missed out on the 3-step process, who missed out on the T-shirts, ask Trevor Lawrence what he wants. Give Trevor Lawrence what he wants. Tell the media what Trevor Lawrence wanted. Pretty simple, pretty, optics are there, move on. But we're still here talking about now, well, is Press Taylor, is he doing an addition for this preseason? Does he have to call a great game to get this, to get the go-ahead when it comes to week 1? Is this like American Idol for offensive coordinators? I don't think so. I think that they've been established of who's calling the plays. Now, what we think and what they know are two different things. Maybe in that locker room, Trevor knows right now, Press Taylor's calling the plays, and this is all just
a charade.
A charade. And maybe you think there's some gamesmanship involved where Miami's going to be watching, all right, well, who's calling the plays? Well, Press, he does this better. No, there's no gamesmanship per se. But I think you eliminate distractions by getting it out there right now of who's calling the plays. Maybe Doug Pederson disagrees. Maybe he thinks there is some sort of gamesmanship, but not revealing it. But as long as the people in that locker room know, as long as Trevor Lawrence knows, and everyone's on the same page of, yes, this guy is calling the plays for the whole year. We know this. It's established. And we're not going back and forth and saying, all right, well, Trevor, we'll see how Press does in this preseason. If we're not having that conversation, then so be it. But from our perspective, from the media's perspective, it's not the best look.
Let me be dramatic here for a second, if you don't mind. I think all the things you said, right? We're kind of on the same page. We've talked this a million times. I think we know where it's at. But are the Jags running? Is Doug running a little bit of? Is this risky of almost derailing things? Because there's so much attention. There's going to be so much attention on those first couple of games, press. It's been such a conversation point. He hasn't squashed it. He's let it go. And now, listen, if Doug was calling plays, we're going to be critical of the offense anyway if it's not performing. But you really have, it's going to be a lot of noise if they don't come out of the gates. I mean, I can't remember the last time I kind of felt like how important it is for the Jags offense to look good early. We didn't say that last year. We just thought they were going to look good. This year, I think they need to look good early. This reminds me a little bit of 2017, where we didn't know this going in, but we learned it in hindsight, how important it was for the Jags to get off to a good start against Houston in 17. There was almost a mutiny in the locker room because of the camp that they had with Coughlin and Marone. And there were guys that were they were dead. Like, I think they played the Bucs that year in the preseason. I just remember, I can picture talking to Mercedes Lewis, and he was pissed. He was just like, they had no gas, no juice, nothing for the game. And I remember that. And what then you realized few weeks later is, hey, if they didn't come out of the gates like that, and I know they lost to Tennessee the next game, but then they went and whooped Baltimore and London. Like, if they didn't come out of the gates like that against Houston, whatever, and feel like, hey, this was worth it because look what we are, that was going to turn ugly in a hurry in 2017. Like, it was sitting on that line is what you basically learned later on. What I'm saying is, do we see that now? Are we seeing this ahead? Like, hey, this could get ugly if they don't perform right out of the gates because the noise will just ramp up so much. It'll be the inevitable question. Doug will be annoyed by it. Press Taylor will be annoyed by it. Trevor will be annoyed by it. Players will be annoyed by it. And they're like, sooner or later, somebody's going to be like, why do we make this such a big issue?
Yeah, I mean, that's been my proponent the whole entire time. And this has been my issue with how this whole thing was handled, dating back to the combine or whatever it was, when you just said, like, we'll see, we'll see, we'll see. It's almost like you get that book report, you're waiting to the very last second to turn it in. Just take care of it now. Like, once again, in my opinion, there's no benefit by saying, we're going to wait and see how this plays out. Now, maybe they know in the locker room, and that's fine. But where I sit... Okay, but then if they truly do know, then at what point do you get tired of hearing the same question? Like, is someone going to ask Trevor the question again? Because I can't wait to hear
today.
Okay,
yeah,
can't wait to hear that response. That's going to be fun. Like, I don't know why I would subject my quarterback to having to go through that every single time.
Yeah, he's been a little immune to. I mean, it's certainly not like Doug. Doug has been asked. Yeah, a lot.
And Trevor's just been like, yeah, well, doesn't matter.
Yeah, he's been. I mean, he's only talked once in camp. This is his second time talking.
Yeah, he's been professional about it.
You know what's really interesting about this? I thought about this. I thought about the context of Jacksonville versus the rest of the league. Mm-hmm. You're not seeing this topic on Good Morning Football. You're not seeing it on ESPN. Now, if this was New York, if this was an Aaron Rodgers story or whatever, you would. I haven't seen one national person talk about the play calling.
Yeah.
Not one. Mm-hmm. If this was Andy Reid and Mahomes, you would see it. I think it would.
How many times do you see it with Bieniemy?
Yeah. I think it's a benefit of being in Jacksonville that's not a story outside here. And so that helps probably Doug and everything else. But it is a story here. I mean, it's been the biggest story of the offseason, which is kind of to be the biggest offseason in biggest story of the offseason in Jacksonville, outside of transactional stuff. Mm-hmm. And it really not measure at all nationwide, which I guess does help them in this case. But it will become a national story is the point. At some point, if it sputters, it will get to that stage, I think.
Now, see, on this, you can just add this to another issue that I have with how this is being handled. I don't think it will be a national story if the offense just doesn't do well. I think the story nationally, if the offense doesn't do well, is Trevor Lawrence the real deal. Like, yeah, I think it's going to deflect right to Trevor Lawrence, and I think that'll be unfairly. And then, in subtext, it'll be, oh, yeah, and we're not really sure who's calling the plays. But, man, Trevor Lawrence out the gate, knew he paid, isn't looking so good. Like, honestly, I think in terms of national coverage, this Doug Pederson, Press Taylor story is like the back pages. And if this offense comes out and spins the tires and doesn't look good, it's going to be all because of Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's fair. That's going to be, you're right, the blame game, which also might be, to your point, unfair on Trevor. And Trevor might be playing poor. That might be a separate issue. But we got to go back maybe to the root of this, if that ends up happening, of, okay, what's up? Now, I still think, and you think, I believe, because we made a T-shirt about it, that Trevor's going to talk today after practice. Now, I don't think this is the time, but I think by the time week 1 against Miami comes along, he's going to fully endorse at some point, Press Taylor. He's going to be asked about it enough where he's going to fully endorse, which he kind of already has. But
no, he has, yeah.
Yeah, he already has. But it's going to become a little louder right now that he will, because this story has dragged on. So when he does that, I do think it calms the waters a little bit, and then also does almost turn the attention back to him anyway. Because if he's cool with it, then he should be able to perform with it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Even if Doug made the right call. I mean, to me, Doug's misstep on this, or potential misstep, and where he's going to get heat is from us on the outside and from his bosses. Because we kind of know that both his bosses, well, I'm not sure where you put Trent Baalke as his boss, but the front office would like him to call plays. It's pretty apparent. So that's where he's going to face some noise if this doesn't go well early on. And he can handle all of us probably, but you'll see him get more and more agitated. I think you're already seeing it.
Yeah.
But I don't understand how Doug can't expect this, this question to be coming.
Yeah. I mean, but dude's been in Kansas, as a coordinator in Kansas City. He's been the head coach in Philly, which I feel like their media is a little more, we're going to hold you to the fire than we will. So, how can you not see this coming, though?
Yeah, I know.
How can you not have the foresight to say, wow, well, if I don't announce this, I'll probably be asked this every single day. You knew this was coming. This is the bed that you made. So you're just going to have to deal with it until you want to come out and say who's calling the plays.
Yeah, and maybe Doug is like, okay, this isn't a national story. I can deal with the guys around here.
Let's go. Brent, let's make it go national, man. Let's start spreading it.
I do think it's pretty wild that it's not. I mean, as much as people consume the NFL, and I get Jacksonville right now isn't the Super Bowl champ, Mahomes, Reed, that's a sexy story. It's not Caleb Williams, the number one pick in Chicago, big market, and you name it. I understand that fully. I mean, nobody gets that more than me probably. But we are in a world that, it doesn't matter. In the offseason, you're still 3-4 hours deep every day on the NFL. And, this hasn't become a story, especially on the heels of Reed and Bieniemy, and also the relationship between Reed and Doug. So it's a bit fascinating, and maybe I've missed something nationally that they did talk about this or have talked about it, but I haven't seen it much. I feel like we would have seen it more if that would have happened. So it's pretty wild, but it will get there. It will get there, or Trevor will take the brunt of it. One of the two, to your point. Let's just hope it works, because I do think. I'm going to go back to finish this off. I'm going to go ask you this question because I know how I feel about it. Are you okay with press calling plays? Do you think he's a bad play caller? Do you think they can be successful with press calling plays? I guess I just asked it 3 different ways.
I think they'd be more successful with Doug Pederson calling the plays, obviously, because I think Doug Pederson has the proven track record. I'm not sure Press Taylor really has the proven track record. So, I'm taking Doug Pederson over Press Taylor. But once again, my biggest caveat is, what does Trevor Lawrence want? And if Trevor Lawrence is comfortable with Press Taylor and he prefers Press Taylor, I think Trevor Lawrence knows better than I do. I think he knows better than anybody in the local media. So if that's the case, then I roll with Trevor.
Yeah, and I think that's a little bit what my view on this has always been. Yeah, I agree. Doug would be better. I think the track record shows it. That's obvious. That's logic. That's where this whole thing started. But I've never really sat here and said, I think Press Taylor sucks. I know the fans do think that coming off last year, but I don't. I think they can be successful with Press. I just don't think that's the most ideal way to go, to your point. But I do think it just begs the question. It's okay, because Doug's not going to call plays, does it make their offense bad? I don't necessarily think that. I don't think that.
Yeah, I mean, just where I sit, if I was going to be a competitor, going to be a head coach, and maybe I'm not in the hot seat quite yet, but I didn't reach expectations last year, even though we had a winning record, but we didn't go to the playoffs. We were supposed to. We had a major collapse towards the end of the season. I'm doing everything in my power to have an influence on this team winning. And you can call it selfish, you can call it whatever, but ego. But I'm not going to pass the reins to somebody else, even if they're my best friend. I'm going to see this through. I've won a Super Bowl. I know what it takes. I know what it looks like. I'm going to make the decisions.
Yeah.
That's what I would do, though.
Yeah. Well, add another 25 minutes of play calling conversation. This is like our Yannick Ngakoue of 2019.
Now we're talking.
Isn't it?
Feels like it.
It does kind of feel that.
Yeah.
I think that was right. Well, we would have kicked off the show right around then, and Jan was like a topic every day. It was like every day. This feels like that story. It just and again, I mean, we've kind of said it's. I don't think Doug's helped squash the story in any way. He's kind of kept it alive, if anything else. today is that Press Taylor will call plays in the preseason. He'll call it from the field, which is different, which we also think will lead to Press Taylor calling plays week one in this, at least at the start of the year. But Doug did not say that today. He actually said, we'll still figure it out for Miami. Just keeps leaving that door open. Hope the air conditioning's not on because you're letting a lot of cold air out.